An entitled, corrupt pastor demands that I give over $300 for a pledge to his church just so he can secretly buy a brand new Cadillac. But after being treated like garbage after volunteering so much of my time at this church, I decided to get some revenge, resulting in mass panic from the rest of my team, as well as a lot of frustration from everybody involved. Here's what happened. So this happened several years ago, back when I was part of a Christian cult-like church, and I was also in leadership. Back when I was 22 years old and very young and impressionable, as a young adult, I was part of the media team for this church. We were responsible for creating videos and flyers, as well as posting on social media and taking pictures. This was volunteer work, but the pastor, we'll call him Pastor Corruption, was very cold-hearted, he micromanaged a lot, and he was a dictator of the religious institution, while often giving us a last-minute project that would keep us up all night just to try and make a video play during service the next day. I mean, we averaged 3 to 5 hours of sleep per night, but this was while I was in school. So during this time, in order to stay on top of my homework and other projects, I would average close to 2 to 3 hours per night, and to be honest, I'm not sure how I survived. I mean, I even had occasional bouts of paranoia, delusions, and awful depression. Now, Pastor Corruption loved money. He had a giant 6-bedroom house for himself and his wife, and all of this was coupled with heated driveways and the latest model Cadillac, which sat atop of said driveway. The church building itself was overinflated, which sat close to 1,000 people, but maybe had a congregation of only about 400 people or so. But more than Pastor Corruption's love of money was his love for other people's money. 70% of the sermons were regarding how you needed to give the shirt off your back to the church, or else you didn't love God and you were going to hell, which is ironic considering their accountant had been caught embezzling funds in the past. This went beyond any kind of standard tithing, which was 10% of what you make, and included pledges, fundraisers, and giving for church events, as well as going to retreats that made a profit for the attendees, Pastor Corruption, and his pack of goons. And they would shame you for not giving money and for being poor, while also openly bragging about how God blessed them after these rounds of extortion. Well, one day, it is near Pastor Corruption's birthday, and his pack of goons decided that the pastor's car from last year's model was too old, and he definitely needed a brand new car. They took a pledge from all the ministry departments to pay for said car, and the minimum pledge you were allowed to make was about $300, and of course, the media team was no exception. So me, the broke college kid with a minimum wage part-time job, decided that was impossible, and I just wasn't going to pledge anything. This led to several hour-long lectures and shaming sessions, all about how I was seen as a leader and I needed to set an example, which by the way was blatantly not true. I mean, I wasn't seen by anybody because I always worked behind the scenes. So finally, I got fed up and I got worn down to the point that I confessed that I couldn't pledge because that would be taking all of my rent money. I lived with some other leaders from the church at the time, and I shared a room with another girl. $300 doesn't seem like a lot now, but at the time, for not even having my own space or a place for my bed, this honestly was a highway robbery, especially for a broke college kid. A girl who lived with me, who also was lecturing me, told me just to pledge the money anyways, and then I could pay the rent later. So eventually, I was coerced into giving the $300 for Pastor Corruption's stupid car, and now he had 2 brand new Cadillacs sitting in his heated driveway. Well, fast forward, and 3 days after rent was due, the girl who lectured me about pledging comes up and asked me for the rent money. I said to her, "Look, I don't have it yet." She said to me, "What do you mean you don't have it? I gave you 3 extra days to figure out something." So I looked at her and I said, "What am I supposed to do here? Do you want me to pull it out of thin air?" She then remarked that maybe I should have been more responsible with my spending, but I said to her, "Look, I have spent $2.16 on myself in the last 3 weeks, and it was to get a coffee so I don't crash my car while driving because of lack of sleep." She then jumped in and said, "I'll give you until the end of this week, but you can't expect us to cover you any longer than that. You are being extremely selfish." So now, on top of worrying about juggling projects between school and the church, I need to worry about not getting evicted. Then I decide to come up with a plan. I'll just pawn off my laptop, since it had just come out recently and I decided to splurge and buy the latest model when my last 6-year-old laptop took a dump on me a few months before. I used it for schoolwork, but they had labs I could use on campus that would help me get by. However, the thing I used it for was media projects for the church. You know how Pastor Corruption likes money? Well, he didn't like spending money. So the media team had a 13-year-old desktop that was overloaded with files which severely severely slowed down its already laggy performance, and it caused it to take several hours to render videos. That is, if they don't fail or corrupt. When I had gotten my laptop, it was fairly decent at rendering large files in under 10 minutes, and it had amazing clarity and graphics, so they had convinced me to switch to using my laptop for all things media related rather than using the decade-old desktop. I didn't mind because it didn't interfere with my schoolwork that much, but all the templates for social media and other videos and files were on my laptop now, meaning every week I was responsible for getting everything updated and handing off the final version of the file to the head of the media team. The girls I live with would help me edit these files when we were home, as we were the leaders of the media team. This means that all of the recent files of projects they needed were on my laptop, and no backups were made on the church-owned desktop. So I pawned my laptop, I got the rent money, and I paid the leader without saying anything about how I managed to get the money in a single day. Saturday night rolls around, which is usually when we worked on the video files that we needed for the next day, and that's when they asked me where my laptop is so we can get started. But when they asked me, I said, well, I don't have it. They looked at me and said, where is it? But I just responded by saying, I pawned it off. Now, when I said that, they literally could not believe what I said. They said, what? Why? I responded by saying, I needed to pay you rent money. I had no other way to get you the money. I couldn't afford the pledge, but you graciously gave me an extra 3 days to pay it and make up for my rent I used to pay for the pledge. This is one of the most valuable items I own, so I figured it was the quickest way to repay you. Well, when I said that, they all started freaking out. They wanted me to go get the laptop right then and there, but the pawn shop was closed by that point. So they rushed to the church and fire up the desktop and desperately try to recreate the videos we needed from scratch. However, they have no backups since mine was being exclusively used, and the programs and versions that I was using versus what that awful computer had was completely different. In the end, we didn't even have anything ready in time for service that Sunday morning, and the entire media team got yelled at by pastor corruption. I got double yelled at by the leaders of the media team, but it was worth it to see them in panic. Several months later, I ended up leaving the church altogether, and I was nice enough to give them all the files of stuff I had on my laptop. My only regret is being so amicable when I left, because that place sucked, and I hate pastor corruption so much. However, the last I heard, most of the people I knew there have left the church, and the church itself has even downsized considerably, and it's even moved buildings. I assume, though, they never got a new desktop for the media team after I left. This is one of the many outrageous aspects of this church, but it made me never want to deal with organized religion ever again, and now I'm mostly agnostic. Wow, those people were super corrupt and honestly so disgusting. Who in their right mind would be like, okay, pay us $300, and then 3 days later roll up and be like, okay, we need another $300 that you don't have? Like, these people are insane. Like, that money pledge wasn't going to anybody who actually needed the money. It was obviously gonna get that pastor a new car, and that is so corrupt and disgusting. They might as well be stealing people's money and using it for stuff that you're definitely not expecting it to be used for. So honestly, I think with all things considered, I'm so glad the original poster got away from that church, and they were able to, in some kind of roundabout way, get back at these people for treating you so poorly. Because people like this who prey upon other people's like generosity are truly some of the most toxic people on planet Earth. And it's really good to see that you were able to get away from them. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled grandmother is absolutely awful to live with, and despite our several attempts to try and get her to move out, she refuses to leave. And now we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I love my grandmother with all of my heart, but she is very difficult to live with. She moved in about 6 years ago due to a hurricane that damaged her roof. She was only supposed to stay in a couple of months because we were trying to fix her roof, but also she had to get some kind of surgery for her arm. We were understanding, and we just don't want her to stay alone in her new damaged house, all while healing from surgery. So at first, we had no problem with her being here. Within the first few days of surgery, she was acting very sickly, constantly needed help with this or that, but whenever family came over and all the attention was on her, and they were talking to her about things that she likes, she suddenly was no longer sick or fragile. She was running up and down the stairs, showing off all the stuff that she bought. She pretty much forgot that she was a frail old lady. She only came here with a basket of clothes and a suitcase. We thought she came with a suitcase because she travels a lot, because she's a singer and does tours from time to time, but looking back at that now, she was probably plotting to move in with us. When she first moved in, my brother wasn't here, so she got to stay in his bedroom, and it didn't take much time for the room to get kind of stuffy because she loves shopping and buying things, especially things that she doesn't need at all. That room was huge, and for her to take up so much room within a month was just crazy. Another weird thing is that she will buy an entire outfit and then only wear it once for her performance. So just try to imagine how much clothes have been stuffed into my brother's closet. But now try to imagine her buying more clothes, and now she's trying to put that in the closet. And with this spanning her entire career as a performer, she has so many clothing options and shoe options that she's bought all in her house, literally in a single room of her house, that for some reason she never wants to touch or wear again, and yet she still refuses to even get rid of it, even though she completely abandoned her house. And she even bought a storage garage just to fill it up with more useless things that she's never gonna look at again. Well, fast forward, and a couple of months later, my brother wants to move back in. Now, she was angry, so she asked my mother why her own grandson was moving back into his childhood home, while also asking where she's supposed to stay. Well, my mom basically told her that she can go back home now since her arm is healed, and she just came back from tour, so she should have enough money to fix the roof. But she said that a couple $100s from tour isn't nearly enough money to make her move back into her house, which is a complete lie. So she asked if she can move into my mother's personal room. So for reference, my mom has two rooms. Her bedroom that she shares with my dad, and the second room is her hobby room. She barely slept in her bedroom, so that hobby room was her personal room. She did everything in that room. She ran a personal blog for her clothing that she crafted herself. She did makeup tutorials and made beautiful wigs. She was basically a content creator while also being a hairstylist. She needed that room for work and content. My grandmother knew all of these things and insisted on moving in that room. So my mom reluctantly let her move in. And my mom is now miserable and very frustrated because of all of this. She has basically put her life on pause, all because grandma won't move out of that room, and it looks horrendous in there. And I swear, there is a rotting odor in that room. My mom's room was pretty spacious, so when my grandmother moved in there, she did exactly what she does best. She hoards a bunch of stuff. Now, we can't even fit in that room. There's only a small space to walk in and out of it, and there's some weird rotting smell in that room, but I think it's either from a pile of clothes or the fact that my grandmother showers only once a month. Now, I'm not exaggerating here, I seriously counted, and we can all tell when she's showering because of weird noises that she makes in there. And also, this might sound weird, but she absolutely destroys the restroom. Imagine a quiet, peaceful night, and you're about to fall asleep when suddenly you hear Rack City by Tyga inches away from your bedroom in the restroom. And mind you, your bedroom is in front of the restroom, so you have to hear a 70-year-old woman go to the bathroom in there. That kind of gives you a good picture into what I'm dealing with. Also, she's always aware whenever someone else is done cooking. She listens to every sound and movement and knows exactly when you're done cooking food before you can tell anybody else. And then she proceeds to eat most of the dinner. And now we barely cook because she keeps taking all the food. Not only that, but when she does cook, she cooks only for herself. She literally listens to your every move, and she will listen to every conversation you've had in the privacy of your own room. She tries so hard to avoid my mom because my mom wants to have the conversation about when she's going to move out. And my parents' room is right next to the room my grandmother's in, so she's listening to possibly everything that they say and do in there. She knows when my mother is moving around. She knows when we are with our mother and talking to her about whatever. And I'll never forget when we complained about how grandma eats all the food and cooks for no one but herself, and how we were tired and felt so uncomfortable around grandma. But then the next day when she cooks again, she surprises all of us and actually made us something. And this is all a pattern too, by the way, because I know that she hears us complaining in her bedroom, and then after us complaining, the next day she'll order pizza or something like that. I wouldn't even be surprised if there was a peephole in my parents' bedroom. Also, let me just add that we don't care about her cooking for us. We honestly really appreciate it all the time. It's just the fact that we always notice that she is very selfish about it. And the worst part about it is that if we go out to eat some food and we come back home with food for ourselves, she'll just complain and say that we're treating her like garbage. And don't even get me started on fixing up the house, because there is a range of things that she will do. The first few times we tried to talk to her about the house, she would just complain about how she doesn't have the money, and how when she tours she's not making much money, and how she's basically being paid pennies to perform. Except that's not true at all, because when we do go to see her perform, she is done with her gig and she actually gets paid. And it's usually about $2,000 or more per performance, so just imagine how much money money she makes in a month-long tour. She'll brag about it on Facebook about how much she's getting paid and where she's going, so we know it is definitely not about the money. Then, during my freshman year of college, things got even more drastic. Now, every time my mother mentions the house, suddenly my grandma is sick and can't walk, and suddenly needs to be pampered and taken care of. She had a pinched nerve in her back, but acted like she just got hit by a train or something like that. Every time I would leave my room, she would moan super loudly. So when I tried to use the restroom, she would moan loud like she needed help. Then I would stay in the restroom and she would suddenly go quiet. Then as soon as I'm back to my room, she starts moaning loud again. Then I stay in my room for a second and then she's quiet again. I mean, she's just completely faking it. I started to ignore her because I knew she didn't need help. But then suddenly she gets up and walks to my mom's room just so she can talk to her. But my mom plays dead because she doesn't want to deal with her either. And then once my grandma sees that my mom is asleep, or at least pretending to be asleep, she just magically straightens up her back and dashes to the restroom as if nothing was wrong with her. She also still does this every time we talk to her about the house or about moving out. Suddenly her back hurts and she can't move, and then she'll call the ER and comes back home the same day because there's nothing actually wrong with her. Now, I know you're probably wondering, well, why not move into an apartment? She has all this money, why not just tell her to get out? Well, we tried that and it didn't work. Actually, she was the one that kept insisting to move into an apartment since she knew we wanted her out of the house. She said that in an argument with my mom, and my mom actually took her to go shopping for apartments the next day. Well, grandma just had to double it, I guess, because as soon as they found the nearest apartments, my grandma said that she needs to go to the emergency room because she thinks her blood pressure is rising. Like, she is so full of garbage. So now you're probably wondering, why not get her to move in with someone else? Well, we've tried that too, and we really regret that so much. My grandma finally contacted my uncle because suddenly she really cares about her only great-grandchild. She spends the whole day there and then comes back home with some garbage. She told our uncle that she was getting mistreated and that my mom was going to kick her out and leave her out on the street. And my uncle for some reason believes this, despite knowing how narcissistic she is, and then starts this big argument with my mom. My mom then explains to my uncle what is actually happening, and he's dumbfounded to find out that his mother is doing what she does best. Then he offers to my grandmother a room in his house if she ever leaves ours. My grandmother later refuses because there isn't a nearby airport and there's nowhere that she can shop for more clothing. And we are all still dumbfounded at how consistently self-centered and narcissistic she truly is. Like, she really does have a self-serving personality. And that wasn't even the only time she went around accusing us of mistreating her. When the ER came to our house during one of her fake episodes, she told one of the people taking her to the hospital that she was so sick and that she had not eaten in days. I mean, we were all about to lose our minds. We just could not believe that she was saying any of that. We were cooking for her, we were heating up soups for her, buying electrolyte water for her. I mean, we were taking care of her, and that's what she decided to do. Throw us under the bus for literally no reason. Luckily, nothing happened after that, but she still does that from time to time, where she will complain to someone that we're trying to throw her out on the streets. I mean, she just loves to play the victim. Unsurprisingly, she also wasn't a good mother to both of her children and pets. The best way I can describe her relationship with my mom is pretty much the movie Mommy Dearest, because she treated her daughter like garbage when my mother was a child. My grandmother always made sure she had the best clothing and shoes and hairdos, while her children constantly struggled, and she treated my mother the worst. She would find any reason just to hurt her. As my mother got older and my grandmother got none the wiser, my grandma was expecting everyone to treat her like a celebrity, and she is still like this. She thinks that she paid her dues and believes now that she is fully entitled to live here with us despite everybody wanting her out of the house. She fully expects everybody to take care of her even if she mistreats them. She also insults everybody and is extremely bigoted. She loves degrading others over their appearance while not looking too good herself. She loves making fun of overweight people despite gaining over 50 pounds within a few years. She also forgot her grandchildren are also pretty overweight themselves. She'll smile and call me pretty and my brother handsome, but then she'll insult her other two grandchildren who don't have to deal with her. Honestly, my grandmother is way too much to handle, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your grandma is a handful. Like, you were not kidding when you said she is obnoxious and a lot to deal with. Like, this lady is basically trying to make it so she never leaves your house. She has invaded all of your space. She's been very rude and disrespectful to your mom and dad and to you and your brother, and she's clearly faking illness just so she can have a place to stay and not have to go back back to her house for some reason. Like seriously, if she really does feel like she's being mistreated, then why on earth would she stick around? Like she clearly is lying and she doesn't feel that way, and instead just wants to take advantage of your mom and dad's kindness, all while refusing to like move on with her life and go back to her own home. Like her behavior across the board is completely unacceptable, and I don't blame you for feeling overwhelmed and like really annoyed by your grandma. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would have lived there for 6 years. It would have taken like 1 year of me dealing with that, and then I would have moved out and found my own place. Like she's already invading everybody's privacy, she's lying to medical staff about how she's being treated, and she is all around just being a nasty person. So in my opinion, it is definitely time for her to get out and find some other place to live. You all have put up with this for 6 years. The only reason she's sticking around is because she has a free place to live, and she has a new batch of people that she can manipulate and treat like garbage. So hopefully that happens sooner than later, because honestly, if I was in your shoes, there is no way on earth I could ever live with that lady. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.